and this is our plan of attack.
Banks have become an essential trait to our democracy. So consider this justice.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio!
Extendivite really works. Just listen to what some people have to say.
Several years ago, I was developing a very severe situation. I called it my flippy heart. It just was doing not good things, and I did not want to go to a medical doctor because I just knew they would give me a cover-up pill. I didn't want to get onto that sort of thing at all. When I learned it was garlic and cayenne is a healer. It is a wonderful herb. I said, I think I'm onto something here. I'll tell you, I wouldn't be without it. It did wonderful things for me.
Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid. Call now. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Barbara Jean Lindsey is an internationally acclaimed psychic, spiritual healer, author, and founder of the online mystery school, Esoteric University. As the Cosmic Oracle, she is a conduit to the powers that be to answer your questions about your future self, past lives, current career, love. She shines light into the darkness to illuminate what was, what may be, and beyond. The readings and advice given by Barbara Jean Lindsey are for entertainment purposes only, should not take the place of any medical, legal, or financial advice given to you by a qualified professional, and are not a substitute for medical, legal, or financial advice. If you need a doctor, call a doctor. If you need to be expanded, call the Cosmic Oracle.
Welcome, everyone, to the Cosmic Oracle Show. This is your host, Barbara Jean Lindsey. It's Friday, July 26th, 2019, and we are coming to you live, direct from Los Angeles, the Los Angeles area, in my new studio in Sierra Madre. I'm really excited to have my new place. I feel like, when someone says location, like they're really right, because I just feel like this is the right place for me. I'm a lot better mood, a lot happier, a lot more energy. And so, hey, and I get to bring that to you guys, our listeners. So thank you for supporting us here at Revolution Radio. And we are an all-volunteer station. So we're only here due to your not only your thankfulness, gratefulness, but to your donations. So please go to Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com, find that donate button, and donate whatever you can. Right now, we have raised $970 this month, and we only have like a week left. And so we need to raise $2,760 to keep us on the air. So just know that when you do give a donation, $5, $10, whatever you can afford, goes directly to the station. because no one gets paid for anything. All the producers, all the hosts, all the technicians, we all do it as a volunteer basis only. So please keep us on the air. And for those that have given generously before, please continue to do so and know that we really thank you, and thank you also in advance for any donations in the future. So welcome to the show today. I'm really excited. I have an interview and with Jacob L. Cooper and LMSW, RMT, and CH. And he has a cool quote on his website. You can find him there at jacoblcooper.com. And it says, in order to get the fruit on the tree, one must go out on a limb. And that's a quote from Shirley MacLaine from her book, Out on a Limb. So we're going to welcome Jacob. He's a world-renowned public speaker on the afterlife. And through his profound near-death experience, which he will be talking about today, he empowers others through educating and answering the mystery about life on the other side of the veil and the eternal nature of consciousness. He provides individual sessions in his private office and workshops. And Jacob is a licensed social worker, a certified Reiki master, certified hypnotherapist, with a specialization in past life regression therapy, and he additionally facilitates meditation sessions and workshops throughout the country. We were talking before the show, and Jacob will be presenting at the IANS, their yearly convention on September 1st at 11 a.m. We'll have him talk about that coming up, not too far away. So welcome to the show, Jacob. And we're love that you're here and sharing all of your wisdom and your love and your light as well.
Thank you, Barbara. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
Okay, great. It's going to be a New York LA connection tonight. I'm excited for that. How about it?
Why not?
It's a true honor to be on your program. I know, I think I found you through Facebook out of all places, and I saw that you were affiliated with, IANS, which is a wonderful near-death experience organization, and so much more. They're branching out a lot more, and so it's just an honor. The second, I picked up the phone, I knew I met someone, who was in my tribe a bit and, spoke a similar lingual. So I really love what you do, and it's truly an honor to be on your program here tonight.
Thank you. Well, I thought we would start with maybe we could start with your near-death experience, and maybe a little bit before that, what was your life before? Were you just leading a normal life, minding your own business, and then boom, you go to a near-death experience and you get expanded and you come back, and what do you do with that?
Yeah, I'm actually, I was listening to a little bit about me, and those who didn't fall asleep during the intro, about myself, but I'm also working on my own book in which I'm entailing about my own lessons from my NDE and life on what I would like to call the other side, or when I crossed over at the young age of 3 years old, and so I'm working on my own book with lessons from the light, and to empower those who really have questions about what happens when we die and the continuity of, the soul's existence past, physical death, and really what's to come. And so my real drive and inspiration is to, allow people to process death in their own ways with their own levels of consciousness, but also being open to the possibility that this isn't all that we see, that there's more to life after this. And it's quite exciting from my own experience. And I don't believe that I offer anything that you don't already know deep within, that's not already there. It's just taking some of the pieces away that we've built up and we've been programmed to, within this lifetime. So, a quote that I have, and I like quotes because it allows you to kind of pinpoint forms of consciousness and summarize, areas of life. But, my NDE sums up, and for those who have NDE could attest to me that, in order to find yourself, you must be willing to lose yourself. And so for me, at the young age of 3, although I was very highly tuned in, having an NDE took away everything that I knew in this reality and allowed me to understand that there's so much more, not only that we will join when we die, but also that the other side or higher dimensional existences are not separate from this one. Rather, they're right here coexisting, just on different frequencies and different overlaying levels. And so, really opened me up to so many different levels, of consciousness and so many different levels of existences that, we don't see with our physical eyes, but we know are there.
Right. So like our multi-dimensionality, perhaps.
That's a terrific word. Not only, yes, I do believe that there's so many different forms and levels of existence, and the other side is one of them. But, plenty of times people will look at someone who had a near-death experiencer as all-knowing or all-encompassing in their information. And politely, some of my colleagues might have that belief system, and out of respect, I would have to say that that's not necessarily true at all. In fact, having an NDE really humbled me on a quest and search to understand, all that we are connected to, as I really believe that I got a small taste, of eternity and a small taste of higher dimensional planes. But, to say that I've had the entirety of it or understand it all, would be dishonest. It was just a small taste that really motivated my quest and search for spiritual expansion, past this reality. So, it really expedited a motivational factor to continually search and go deeper within this endless continuum degrees of consciousness that we're all connected to.
Yeah, and part of that too, isn't it, is where you have that experience, and then it can take a lifetime of acclimating, and we change and grow every day. It's not like, I love what you say, that you don't have a near-death experience and then you just know everything and that's the end of it. It's like, it's actually a powerful new beginning.
Yes, we are evolutionary beings, and by that, if those are familiar with Charles Darwin's work, as a physical species, we've evolved. And so throughout the soul's karmic journey, we evolve. And so for someone to truly evolve, there has to be an openness to being honest with yourself, being honest with looking at life through a lens of exploratory, avenues, and not to be stuck or stagnant in your viewpoints. And so that's one of the dangers that I see, with people who are closed off, is that they are comfortable in their level of consciousness, and this is fine, this is where they're at, but they shut themselves off from other possibilities, and they are more, on the cycle of previous viewpoints of life versus being present and being open to infinite possibilities at hand. So that's one thing that I learned from my NDE, was kind of like describing mindfulness or the meditative practice before it happened, but was rather to look up at the mountain rather than down, so to speak, to look at life with a curiosity, lens. And so, my NDE, I was fortunate to be a child, because as a child, you look at any children, most of them look at life through a brand new, fresh pair and set of eyes. For curiosity, it's not kind of closed off, and it's not filtered with their own thoughts and highly processed information that have been built upon based off of previous, experiences and narratives, but rather through being present in the moment in a new, curious viewpoint. And so, that's what I took in, and I was fortunate enough to always have this viewpoint as a young child. But to me, I think we always need to carry that, because a lot of people are blocked with transference of their adult outlooks towards mystical experiences and spiritual connectivity, and so there's a lot of editing, there's a lot of judgment, there's a lot of narrative, and people get very much in their own heads and analytical, and that could block you off from letting go and being playful with it all and experiencing it, being light on the journey, so to speak, as they would say. So, so it's interesting. But I know you mentioned, the integration and understanding of the after effects of it. And so for me, I'm very fortunate to even be, sitting here today because I consider myself someone who had a near-death experience, but also someone, who is a student of the phenomenon. Since a young, teenage years, I didn't exactly know what it was. And I found out, I guess the verbiage of what I had through literature and through books. But, I think we'd be remiss to not include, pioneers such as, Dr. Raymond Moody, who was famously known for coining the term of near-death experience. And for listeners who haven't heard of Raymond, he is the modern day Plato, Aristotle, Socrates. He wouldn't admit that, but that's coming from my opinion. He's brilliant philosophical, analytical, parapsychological minds that we have on this planet, and he's a true pioneer in his work. And to top that all off, he's an incredibly personable, nice man. So I would highly recommend checking out any of his works. I know he has a program called the University of Heaven with Lisa Smart, my good friend, but Raymond is just a brilliant source of endless information. But I give him a lot of credit, and other researchers such as Kenneth Ring, who actually I found out was my father's professor at the University of Connecticut, and PMH Atwater, and there's an endless sea of researchers, but they've really given a lot more credibility and analytical framework to really helping not only the world understand near-death experiences, but the experiencers themselves to take more ownership and tangible, meaning of their experiences and kind of normalize it in a way. And so, I'm so grateful to be a part of this growing movement, which every day has someone coming out of the woodworks, in their own experiences. I think prior to Betty 80's book, we never really heard of a famous, near-death experiencer. But if you look a little bit closer at history, I was even looking, reference in popular culture and American government and psychiatry and psychologists. I mean, it's amazing the list of people that you wouldn't have think of had NDEs who have had them. So, it's not a new movement. And even there's been biblical references and references to Greek philosophical works of near-death experiences. And I know Raymond talks extensively about that. I don't want to overstep my boundaries in philosophy. That's more of Raymond's work in terms of philosophy and logic and all that. But it's a fascinating movement, for sure.
Yeah, and he definitely took a risk, didn't he? A courageous risk in his own career, with speaking his truth. So.
Yeah, and it was a selfless risk because he had, I do believe a comfortable position, as a professor, but he went kind of like my quote out on a limb, because this was just such a fascination to him and an endless, search. And so I'm sure if he was living in a box, he would have been quite fine with the life that he lived, but it was very much a sacrificial, work that he had where probably wasn't, so easy to do the work that he did. And I'm sure it came with a lot of questioning and ridicule from some of his colleagues. But as a near-death experiencer sitting here today, I could almost cry, and so many of other of my colleagues out of dear gratitude for his life's work and his contribution to us all. Really, he deserves all the praise in the world, Dr. Moody. So, I noticed that you also mentioned that you're a part of some affiliate IANS groups, and that's wonderful too. I really am looking forward to the annual convention in September for anyone who might be interested. Right outside of Philadelphia, I'm going to be giving a talk there, so it's a wonderful presentation, and a lot of people will think that it's just for NDEers or out-of-body experiencers or spiritual transformative experiences, but I'm going to be very real and honest that it's to anyone. And when I give a talk and I give over my near-death experience, what I will say is I don't formulate attachment to it. It's not mine, and any NDE is for the public, I do believe. Much like with Raymond's work, it wasn't about him. My near-death experience was not about me, and it came with a double-edged sword, the experience that I had and the difficulties that it presented. But, it's about those who are grieving. it's a contribution to those who have some of the biggest question mark that man has had since day one, and hopefully it could provide answers that will allow people to just have a sigh of relief and embrace their lives and remember, their own truths. As I don't believe that I'm discussing anything new or anything that someone doesn't know in the deep parts of their inner subconscious mind. So, in their higher self. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it's where the listeners can relate to your story, though, because sometimes all you can do is tell your story, and share what happened to you and what it was like to be on the other side. And they get to kind of work. All of us are so unique that we all get to take something from it or have a different perspective of your story that can maybe help us or give us a connection, in the big picture of something in our lives. Who knows, right? Who knows where it can go, but it'll be somewhere good. That's for sure.
Yeah. I within any of my talks, whenever I give over, the narrative of my experience in my NDE talk, I first start off with a guided meditation because my goal, yes, the left brain, needs the information to make you comfortable, to digest it. So I do, have a guided meditation prior to my talks, but also my whole goal is for the whole entire talk to almost be kind of like a guided meditation, for people to just let go of what they've been holding on to and just expand consciousness and allow, their own higher minds to be open to higher downloads of information. And hopefully with my talk, they could have other experiences and open themselves up to higher dimensional planes by just simply taking off some of the dust that has occurred, within this lifetime, just really strip them away from any form of barrier of knowingness of their connectivity to the other side or heaven or those on the other side. So, it's expansive work that I try to, integrate within my NDE, where it's not just, hearing words and feeling good about it, but rather a collaborative type process where people are able to, experience it simultaneously with my talk and let go and vibrate a little bit higher.
Right. So they let go of fear, basically. You're going to help them with that just by telling your story and giving them some maybe new information.
Yes. And, I always, say that, there's a transference, on the way that we operate in this world into, spiritual expansion, but really, and I'll explain, give a practice like meditation, for instance, and I do run a lot of mindfulness workshops. It's not that we're trying, as physical beings, and many of us have an association with our identity as physical, tangible beings. And so, within our world, if you get a car, if you get a house, if you get a job, if you get all these physical things, there's tangible weight. The issue is obviously you can't take that with you. And so when that kind of falls, where are you? Where is your identity? Obviously you can't have a hearse behind a U-Haul truck, as they would say. So, a U-Haul truck behind a hearse. I'm sorry, but the point that I'm trying to make at is if your vantage point comes from an understanding of yourself as rather not a physical being, but a spiritual being temporarily in this physical body, then this work becomes a lot more digestible. And because, there's a different law in spiritual expansion. It's not about the process of accumulation like we do have on the earth plane, of forcing your way or grunting or grinding your way to get to the top, but rather the reduction of everything that you've held yourself to be true or valid and losing that all. So it's merely the process of reduction to get to your core truth and burning away all the excess stuff that gets in the way of that. And so, spiritual expansion really works in opposite ways that we're conditioned here in this earth plane. It's not the process of addition, but rather the process of subtraction.
Mm-hmm. And on a daily basis, right?
On a daily basis. And so many people will say, what could you gain from meditation in my talks? And I say, you gain nothing, but you lose anxiety, you lose depression, you will lose all of your excess thoughts only to get to that masterpiece within. And so all those layers are peeled off so that you're able to connect to your true, beautiful core within. And so once you have that, you have a lot less attachment, to the world outside of you in terms of additional temporal states of happiness. And so there's a lot more stability that you're able to have and a lot less shifts that you'll have with what happens on the outside because you're living from the inside out, and so from a young age, I was really trained to see the world that way where, one of the after effects of a near-death experience is a lot less of an inclination, obviously to follow the world and its conditions around you, but also to need a lot less in front of you and to be able to recognize the thermostat of your own conditions to be within your own hands and to be a lot more empowered, and to understand that it's got very little to do with what's in front of you, but rather that eternal connection to what's inside of you.
Right. Finding your center, right? What makes you tick, who you are, that part.
Oh, without hesitation. And so I know for listeners, they're hearing me, talking and going off here. So I apologize for that. For those of you interested, I know in my book, I do get in a lot more detail in terms of my NDE as, obviously, within time constraints, it's hard to get into every detail, but, for this show, basically, I'll just kind of summarize a little bit of the underlying features and experiences of my own childhood near-death experience. But more importantly,
we would love that. Thank you.
But more importantly, discussing some of the after effects that caused and how it's influenced my current belief system and my life's trajectory, I guess, for the better. And so for listeners who might not be aware of the term of what a near-death experience is, I would highly recommend checking out that gentleman that I mentioned before, Dr. Raymond Moody. He wrote a groundbreaking book in the mid-'70s, I believe, called Life After Life. And in it, Raymond has a set criteria for near-death experiences. And so oftentimes in my talks, I'll have people who will come to me and say, hey, I was running track and I felt like I was, going to die, or I was close to death, or I had a brush with death. Is that a near-death experience? Well, what I'll say, there's a difference in a fine line between a brush of death and the NDE. And an NDE usually occurs when you're close to, death, or when you are flatlined, but it usually happens to coincide with some form of experience with it. And those aren't always positive. If you go on the IAND's International Association for Near-Death Studies website, there's different forms of experiences, different forms. And so for anyone who's out there, it doesn't mean that yours has to be like mine, where it was all angel-like and positive. For a lot of people, it could be quite scary or threatening or anxiety-inducing, but that doesn't mean that your near-death experience isn't significant or isn't valid or isn't true. So I think what's important is for people to do their research and do their homework, and more importantly, take any ownership of their experience, regardless of the labels of it, and finding ways to integrate it in your own lives, in your own special way no one could give to you. But for me, my near-death experience occurred, due to the deprivation of oxygen that I had at the age of 3, due to contracting whooping cough, which was, a deadly condition if left untreated or unvaccinated. So at the age of 3, I didn't vaccinate whooping cough, and so as the result, I suffocated at the age of 3. And after suffocating at a park, out of all places, I was on a ladder on a slide, and I suffocated, and every part of my being and my body shut down. And so to open up, I had to really lose all that I thought that I was. And then once, the deprivation of oxygen occurred and my brain shut down, is when consciousness expanded and I was able to cross over to the other side. And this was the most amazing, incredible experience I could ever have. And every day of my life, I always process and think about this experience as it, has fully changed the trajectory of my life. And so this experience opened me up to visitations of spiritual guides, loved ones on the other side of the life that I was going to live, over past lives that I've lived, future experiences, themes of a life review, and more importantly, the decision to come back, into this body, into this lifetime, and of course encounters with my soul family or spiritual family and angelic beings, and also encounters with Christ on the other side, just understanding God, in a way that is not depicted in words. So, to just sum it up, those were some of the, bullet point type experiences that happened. But from my experience on the other side, there's different levels. The level that I really tended to had a lot less geological, demographical contexts to it. It was more of the pure light type. Where it was, connecting to the pure light of God, which is the I am that I am, the all that ever is and ever was, the source of everything that ever is. My connection to that, very hard to explain in word, but I view it more in the sense of light or vibration. So, and, it was eternal, bliss and just pure happiness, but more importantly, higher vibrational frequencies and light and high sounds and just imagine yourself ascending to the highest possible level that you can have without any limitation. So, to me, that's what heaven in the other side is like. There's no limit to how good or how high you can soar. On the earth plane, obviously we think the sky is the limit. When we cross over to the other side, there is no possible limit to how high you could soar, how high you could experience yourself as. So it is just fascinating, comfortable, comforting place that we've all been before and we will all go back to. But, as I say, we've got work to do here. We're here for a reason. And so I learned that at a very young age, that this life is much about karmic ties and lessons, and viewing this life very much in the framework of a school in which we're all here to evolve and learn lessons to become closer to the life, further enhance our eternity, and finding ways to just end the karmic cycle and ascend to higher new planes of existence.
Mm-hmm. So would you say it was kind of like a wake-up call, even at 3 years old, so you remember why you're here and give you some focus? Or did you say, and before you answer that, if we could, so I have several questions. Maybe we'll start with that one, and I have several more.
Yeah, ask away.
Okay, so when you took your last breath that you remember in your physical body, and then did you feel a break loose, like you didn't have the body at all, and so you were kind of set free from the body? How was that experience from third dimension, then just right to the other side, that veil? What was it like there? Did you have a body? Did you not have a body? Did you have emotions? Or were you just set free and just able to just be?
Yes, so for me, there was a bit of an incubation process until everything finally shut down within this body. But for me, I suffocated and I was deprived of oxygen, but I was still somewhat in my body, and I was able to experience myself in my body and seeing my body shut down, which was quite scary.
Mm-hmm.
And the last part that I was consciously aware of and in was my brain. And so once my brain was deprived of oxygen, it literally snapped in half, as if you take a power breaker in a house and yank it out. And, it's kind of like, almost like the TV exploding, and just a large crack that happened. And once that happened, that's when everything started to open up and I began to get out into the disembodied state as well. And, the greatest allegorical reference that I could have is almost kind of like going on the fastest roller coaster at Six Flags and going about 1,000 miles an hour. But this is a vibratory journey upwards and upwards where it doesn't end. And so, once my body shut down, that's when really I was out of my body. Almost like the instrument wasn't working and so I couldn't play it anymore. I couldn't be with it. It was shut
Mm-hmm.
down.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like a guitar player wouldn't play a guitar with the strings not working. So there was no point of being in a guitar that wasn't working or a car that stalled or wasn't working. I wasn't connected to it, at this time, and I was out of my body.
Mm-hmm. And so once you were out of the body, where did you go?
So out of the body, and this was a rare type experience, but most NDEers don't report this. This has been really popularized by media outlets of the NDE, but I was one of those who went down a dark tunnel at about 1,000 miles an hour, and then, I crossed over into this brilliant light, once that happened. And then I was able to have an understanding of God and my own, conceptualization. And God, to me, my understanding was standing right in front of this beautiful palace and this beautiful light that was so bright that I couldn't even look at it. And it was this beautiful golden palace with hundreds of angels floating up and down and vibrating and singing out their own, songs. And to me, this was the light of God. It was the most brilliant light that I've ever seen, and I had to shield my eyes from it. And so, another form of God that I was able to see was in Christ, where I didn't necessarily see Christ, but I knew Christ was present with me, and I felt his presence on each side, almost as if the human manifestation of the divine or God. And for us to understand, God in our own ways, in our own levels, then I was able to tune into about hundreds of thousands of angels that were right in front of me, looking down right on my body. So it was an overlaying level on this earth plane, but I was seeing angels right there in the park with me, looking down on my body, which was now flat on the floor with surrounding friends and family. So there were angels directly right in front of me. So my conscious wasn't anything necessarily different. That who we are and that inner voice is always there.
Yeah.
That deep connection, that deep voice, that deep outlook, the observer, whatever you call it, that is always present. It's just what it's exposed to has changed. Its awareness of its true nature has changed. But the voice and the interpreter of life and the observer of life never dies. That's eternal. That voice is always there. The totality of who you are, and that point of view that takes in life never.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. When I had my near-death experience, I still existed. I didn't have a body, but I still existed, and it just blew my mind when I had that aha moment. But it's much different coming from the innocence of a child that hasn't been conditioned, like you're talking about,
Right. And so many people will ask me how, was it possible at the age of 3 to be remembering all these things?
Of course. It's
all these things, and so what I have to say is, most of us associate someone's consciousness with their physical biological age, and so, and really, for me, that's not the case. In this world, there's an acclimational process. There's an adjustment process to this body in this life. Really, that silent observer, beyond its external, representation and how it filters itself is always there. It doesn't shift. And so that voice is always there. It just takes time for you to integrate that voice in your outer representation in this world.
right.
Vocabulary and the body. And so all that is adjusted, but the soul is always there underlying you and in your background. And so there's a psychological development. There's an emotional development, but there's something beneath that, which is a deep inner voice and inner knowing, a deep connection to your endless, timeless self. So when I crossed over to the other side, it wasn't the 3-year-old Jake, physically, emotionally, psychologically. It was the real me, past all those, early developed layers of this lifetime, this carnation.
Mm-hmm. So would it be like where you become one with everything?
Yes, and I couldn't say that I was necessarily one with everything, but there was a heightened degree of expansiveness that I had and a connectedness to this. And so on the other side, I was able to really experience also a lot of geological contours and travel wherever I wanted to on the planet, wherever I would call. And so the way that I see it, there's many levels on the other side, but there's a level which has the same cities, same structures, but it's another parallel dimension. It's a higher dimension, of that plane, so it's interesting. And, just a couple of weeks ago, I went to a place called, it's right in Cape Cod. And so it was a friend of mine, and I'll give an example of this. And I was walking on the beach. He says, I'm playing tennis here and I'm still partying here. Of course, he was a medium friend of mine who passed away, very much into this stuff. And he's in my book. And so I thought, geez, that's crazy. You're playing tennis. I never pictured you as a tennis player. He goes, yeah, I'm playing tennis on the other side and I still have work to do. I still exercise. I still do all these things. I go, okay, pretty cool. And then the reading that I got, the medium, a good friend of mine, her name is Diane Richards. She is a wonderful friend of mine and one of the most brilliant mediums. And if everyone is interested, you could private message me about her because she is fantastic. She's a dear colleague and friend of mine. But she says, is your friend playing tennis or is he having a good time on the beach? And I was just like, wow, that was validation of interdimensional communication between me and this person on the other side. That indeed, that we still have a fun time and we still could party, we still could eat, we still have jobs and roles to do, on the other side, but there's other levels. And the higher you ascend, the more that you're just, that you let go of the earthly roles and life that you lived, and you're more just pure light and pure in the light of God, so to speak, if that makes sense, as you go up higher vibratory on the levels on the other side.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us of some of the places you went when you piqued my interest when you said that you were able to go to different environments there? Can you maybe share one of the places that was significant for you on the other side?
Yeah, because I had, what a lot of what I had was past life, recall. And so I was able to go back to past lives and places of the world that really I gravitated to through profound past lives. But when I connected to those places, it was more, not like visitation or being earthbound, but rather visiting those places on the levels of the other side. And so I visited, areas in South Korea, areas in India. I visited areas in Arizona and out west and lives that I lived out in Europe. And so when I was visiting these, simultaneous to my past life recollection and downloads, of those lives, I was also able to experience, those areas in different dimensional forms on the other side. So it was quite fascinating for my experience. And they take on different forms and different meanings, and so, it was just when I was in South Korea, I was visiting the beautiful mountains and beautiful scenery of it and just my love for the land. And later in life, I took a gravitational pull to the culture, in it. And in India, the same thing. So, I was able to go to a lot, of relevant, past lives and go back to, the places on the other side of those areas. So it's quite fascinating.
Yeah. I found that true with me as well. When I was on the other side, I saw places, environments that I later was able to see on the third dimension here on the earth. And so, at the time I had no idea I would be visiting, these places at a later date in my life. It was interesting.
Yeah. And what's beautiful about, the afterlife is with every thought that you have, therefore you are. And so whatever you think you go to, there's no place where you cannot be or cannot necessarily go. And so whatever you think of is right in front of you. So whatever you feed tends to grow, so to speak. And that's no different within this world. But on the other side, there's a lot quicker of a manifestation process where pretty much directly whatever you is in your front focus is right in front of you. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Hey, can I ask you a question too that came up with is, did you have a guardian with you the whole time or a guide? Were you ever alone on the other side?
Yes. When I crossed over on the other side and when I saw myself, because I was already on the other side. So on that time it was sped up. On this time it was slowed down. So it seemed like eternity that I was there, but literally I visited back to my body, which was now, climbing up the stairs and going down the slide, while I was suffocating. And so I visited my body going down the slide, which felt like I was in this side for thousands of years, but my body, within 2 seconds was right there, within a matter of a second or two. So no time passed on the other side, and this time was in freeze. But as I was going down the slide, my 2 male and female guardian angels, spiritual guides, were with me. And I was just fascinated because it wasn't so much of a thought that I had or a clairaudient, clairsentient experience, but this was almost as if you're watching a movie and looking directly with your physical or spiritual eyes at 2 spiritual guides right in front of you. And it was beautiful. It's the most magnificent beings that I had. But the second I saw them, I was like, oh my Lord, I was just so ashamed that I forgot about them, my 2 spiritual guides. And I forgot that they were always there with me. And I felt a degree of embarrassment and transparency that they were watching my every move. Even at 3 years old, I was embarrassed. So imagine what we should feel in our 60s and 70s after, doing all that we had and, who knows what part we went to or, what part of the Woodstock generation we were in or whatever we did. Always watching you. So, I often make a joke today, it's, when people cross over, it's nothing new because the life review or everything that you've ever seen, has pretty much been seen, all made possible via social media because everyone's taking selfies and taking videos. So we're a lot more aware of that life reel that we've had, so to speak. So there's a lot less of a shock value in what we see. But, the way that I see that life review is everything, the totality of your experiences and its effect on the other people that you've affected. So, it's seeing the life that you had and its impact on others, through their perspective. That allows you to understand the causality and effect of your karmic actions. But, yes, I was able to connect to them on an incredibly profound, deep level. And, the one, sensation that I had was this endless sigh of all being well and this sigh of understanding of eternity and almost having to pinch myself because there's too much to conceptualize the process as to, when you think of eternity and you hear the word and it goes on one level, but try to sit with it and let it hit you and just think of eternity. No beginning, no middle, no end, nothing that you can divide, almost like silence. You cannot divide it and split it up or fragment it. It goes on forever. And so there's a deep underlying understanding of all is well, of being in the eternal light of God on the other side. And so it wasn't something that I analyzed, but rather something that I deeply experienced, this eternal understanding that all is well. And so many of us go throughout their days, with very much, I believe we're all connected to 2 worlds in our own way, but one world is the laundry list, the groceries, the shopping, the jobs, the bills. And so there's always something that we have to check off on our list. There's always something that we have to do. So always a mosquito that's kind of nagging at us. So when you're on the other side, there's nothing necessarily to worry about. You're in the state of eternal bliss, and that's your true nature as a soul is eternal. It isn't based off of that next thing to do, but rather just staying with eternity and your true nature. So it's fascinating.
And can you talk about the love part then? That's my favorite part, is the love part. I mean, how much love are we? How much love did we come from? How much love is there? The love part, could you talk about that?
Yes, it sounds very overstated because when you hear anyone talking about, God, and I do believe the God that we understand, the biblical, form of God, or at least the God that I grew up in, was largely based off of a lot of political agendas where, depicted God in this masculine kind of way and this God that would be upset if you violated, his
you
protocol,
sinner, you sinner,
you sinner, and right, and all that, and not to, and not to knock organized religion. They have their wonderful time and places, and they do tremendous humanitarian work, and they develop, structure and community, but, there's a big separation between spirituality, and religion, which I view more as a communal, based or, structure and a human based structure. But, for me, the God that I grew up with was not the God on either side. The God was not, depicted in terms of the characteristics of man and having his emotions, where if you did something, they'd be upset. There would be the wrath of God if you violated, a certain protocol. Not at all. On the other side, it's as if there was an endless sea of love where you could do no harm and you were always accepted. And, God in the pure light knew your every thought and knew your every motive and knew your essence, because you and that were not separate. And to sum it up, God is love, and that light is pure love. And that is the highest sensation that you could have. And so it's to strip away a lot of the human conditions that we've had, as kind of like this masochistic, male, projected, transferred, structure that we've created, as human beings, and to understand something that is not of this world, that is not of what we've been accustomed to. And so it's quite foreign for a lot of people to understand not just love, but unconditional love, unconditional acceptance, because we've been hardwired to not understand unconditional love. The closest thing to that is a dog, of course, not a cat, because cats, if you don't feed them, they'll let you know. If you come in with a smile, they'll let you know. It's never good enough. But dogs, to me, maybe a little bit biased, are always good with it.
Well, you're speaking to a dog person, too.
Yeah, so. There you go.
I have Mary Margaret sitting right next to me, and she helps every Friday night with the show. And she brings her unconditional love to the show every Friday. So
yeah, and not to knock cats for cat lovers. They have some of the highest pineal glands, out of any animal that I've ever seen. They are so intuitive, and that's why it's rare to find a psychic without a cat. They're almost like their psychic antennas, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
They're psychic amplifiers, so they're very tuned in many ways. And sometimes they use that, for in the bad way, because they'll tap into your fears and they'll continue to go there. Yeah, if they know you don't like them, they'll keep on going to you. So it's fun. Or dogs just let you be.
That's true. Well, could we talk a little bit then about when you came back through to the body, and was your perception changed, or what were some of the side effects of your near-death experience? And we have about 5 minutes to break, so we'll just kind of start going into that before we have our break.
Well, absolutely. And so after having my experience, in my body and my brain shutting down, I learned a lot more about the brain, which is that the brain, is just merely a filter, between the two realms. And so when my brain shut down in half, I had to kind of rewire it and restructure it to get up to speed, within this world, and to have all the neural synapses and, all the parts of the brain working, properly. But, within my brain, there was a pure sense of light within that point. In the filter of my brain, part of it was I was very able to use that filter to connect to the other side, and so, there's I guess a neurological structure today, even science is proving it, the pineal gland, which releases, DMT and stuff like that. The scent is the actual physical, part of us that enhances intuition or connectivity, to other creative sides and higher dimensional planes. But, from my experience, in my brain kind of snapping in half, I was very much wired to have a very clean filter. And so, my consciousness wasn't really within this realm. I was more so on that realm than in this realm, so to speak.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Do you still think you're like that, or have you acclimated more over the years?
As a young child, I would visit the other side almost daily in my preschool years, at the age of 3. and then one day my soul's urge tried to, and as above, so below, there was a higher, governing force of armed guards which blocked my entrance to the other side and didn't let me go. And so, and I think Bruno Mars has a song called Locked Out of Heaven. And, for me, that's kind of what happened to me. I wasn't allowed, back there because I knew that my job was to be here. So later in life, I was able to have a lot more heightened experience, but because I kind of suppressed and repressed that, but it was always in the back burner, always something that I thought was quite cool, but not something which I integrated or processed. It was only till I came across, kind of like a spiritual awakening in my later teens where all the stuff became a lot more tangible and able to process and to take ownership of, so to speak. It was always, there with me wherever I went, and I always saw the world in a different way regardless of not going to the other side every day like I did in preschool.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing so far. It's been amazing. We went through this hour very quickly. We're going to stop now for a break. And so those that are listening in on Facebook, hello, Sarah. Hello, Cassie, all those that checked in and will be checking in later. While we're on our break, you can go ahead and go to Jake's site, his website, and that is JacobLCooper.com. That's JacobLCooper.com. I put it in the chat, and check it out while we go to break. And don't go anywhere. We'll be back, and we'll be talking about what it's like after you have a near-death experience and acclimating that process. He's in his teen years now, and what that's like, and how does it feel? Did you feel different? Have you always felt a little different, or part of you is still there, part of you here, and balancing that? And then also, Jake said that he would lead us in a meditation. So I'm really excited about that as well. So stay tuned, everybody. Stay tuned, Jake, and we'll go ahead and go to break. And thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back after break at 6:04. So stay where you're at and don't go anywhere. And that's the Cosmic Oracle Show.
It's now our for scintillating conversation about movies.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Wadiya will remain a dictatorship. Oh, be quiet. Why are you guys so anti-dictators? Imagine if America was a dictatorship. You could let 1% of the people have all the nation's wealth. You could help your rich friends get richer by cutting their taxes and bailing them out when they gamble and lose. You could ignore the needs of the poor for healthcare and education. Your media would appear free, but would secretly be controlled by one person and his family. You could wiretap phones. You could torture foreign prisoners. You could have rigged elections. You could lie about why you go to war. You could fill your prisons with one particular racial group, and no one would complain. You could use the media to scare the people into supporting policies that are against their interests.
Tune in Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time for Liberation Nation with Deacon John, where America comes to hear the truth.
I know this is hard for you Americans to imagine, but please try.
Ohio Exopolitics will be on from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Studio A. Mark Steiner will have guests on that will discuss many important topics, including the state of the world today. However, much of the show will be dedicated to the writings of Edward Albert Meyer. Let me read a short passage from one of his writings. Love is the highest principle of creation, and through it, everything exists in absolute logic. All of nature in its indescribable splendor is nothing but the love of creation, which is expressed visibly. The love of creation is everywhere, because without it, nothing at all would be able to exist. Please join Mark on Ohio Exopolitics from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Studio A.
It is no secret that the so-called mainstream media is best described as controlled propaganda. Countless news stories are either totally ignored or spun with half-truths, and because of this, essential facts and vital information are often compromised. Join Dr. Ott every Friday night on Studio B at 10 p.m. Eastern and learn why The Story Behind the Story was nominated for a Peabody Award in its second year of producing unparalleled broadcasting excellence in 1997. That is, if you really care about learning the truth. Countless news stories are either totally ignored or spun with half-truths, and because of this, essential facts and vital information are often compromised. Join Dr. Ott every Friday night on the studio.
Transcending time and space, let us take you to the place inside your mind where thoughts divide and mysteries unwind. Join us every Monday evening right here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And you will catch the Fenton Perspective with our great host, Lorian Fenton. Come listen in as she shares her amazing stories from the past to present, along with all of her guest secrets to the future. That's the Fenton Perspective every Monday evening right here from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Revolution Radio. Oh, and you don't need to expect us. We're already here. 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. You will catch the Fenton Perspective with our great Lorian Fenton. Come listen in as she shares her amazing stories.
Extendivite really works. Just listen to what some people have to say.
Several years ago, I was developing a very severe situation. I called it my flippy heart. It was doing not good things, and I did not want to go to a medical doctor because I just knew they would give me a cover-up pill. I didn't want to get onto that sort of thing at all. When I learned it was garlic and cayenne is a healer. It is a wonderful herb. I said, I think I'm onto something here. I'll tell you, I wouldn't be without it. It did wonderful things for me.
Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid. Call now. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host. Its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Thank you, and welcome back to the Cosmic Oracle Show. This is your host, Barbara Jean Lindsey, and we have with us today an interview with Jake Cooper. And if you missed the first part, you really missed out. So I'm sure the second part, we're going to be having Jake lead us in a meditation. He's going to continue to talk about his near-death experience and the changes and that it had an effect that it had on his life until this very day. So welcome back, Jake, to the show.
Here I am.
Yay! We're still working. It's great. I want to thank our listeners, too, for giving donations to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Just hit that donate button and give whatever you can. We really appreciate it. Thank you. And so, Jake, how are you feeling about the interview so far?
This is heaven on earth. I think I've had another near-death experience talking to you. Gotta talk about that one. Yeah. It's profound. You're a wonderful, wonderful host. I really am honored to be on your program.
Oh, it's great to have you. It truly is. It's fun to have another near-death experiencer because, it's like you can see us probably spot each other in a room because it's not a fan club it's our little club that we get to have and share with the world as well.
Yeah, and it's quite comforting, and it's not to have an elitist type perspective, but it's a small group. It's growing, obviously with the advancements of, medical and, medical advancements, which is enhancing and increasing the incubational period of life and death. But also, it's a group that could to some degree understand some of the double-edged sword of the near-death experience where, right. Yes, it comes with a great light, a great awakening and a great, capacity to process so much more. But also, we've also have in our own ways have had to be able to come down to this, earth realm, or as Sylvia Brown would call hellhole, which I don't necessarily agree with so much. But, I hear what you're saying. It could be a contrasting way. And I always say the outside is unease. We just don't know what's going to happen, outside of us or in this world. It's out of our control. And, but always know that the inside is ease, that place of inner connectivity is not outside of us, but within. But, right. I love connecting with all people, as well as NDEers, because there's a similar, language that we speak without even needing to mention words. It's very much a telepathic union that we have.
It's true. It's true. And within NDE, I would like to talk briefly about some of the changes. When you have an ND, did your psychic abilities turn on as a 3-year-old? Were you more sensitive than the kids around you? I know with me, my family called me, they would say, Barbara Jean, you're a little bit touched. And that meant that I, was very sensitive as a kid. And part of that, went, right with the near-death experience much later.
Yes, but I didn't know what it was. It's, I always thought, psychic energy or intuitive capabilities was first selects, someone with a neon light and a crystal ball. And so when I would have all these premonitions as a kid, in foresight, just knowing things before they happened, at times it would be quite annoying, or scary, but I just didn't know what the heck that voice was or what that was, So whenever my mind would get quiet, time, wouldn't necessarily be there. And when I would get still, oftentimes I would see things, happen, and they would happen right in front of me. It was almost as if I would have a constant running of deja vu, as if I've already been there in the future, coming back to this moment. And, it would at times be a little bit frustrating, confusing, scary, because I just didn't know what all this was about or what was going on. Until later in life when I, understood that, those are intuitive capabilities. That was one of the, gifts that came, of the NDE. And I do believe we all are born with intuition, but, the way that I see it is an NDE is an incredible shakeup, of your spirit. It could really accelerate and heighten, your intuition. And, I know there's a lot of psychics and mediums who have had near-death experiences, and that, has really shaped and changed around their form of consciousness, from that experience, and they practice professionally. So it's interesting.
That's what I do. That's what happened with me too, was that it shook me up so much, and then so you have to learn about it. It's kind of where you follow your intuition, where you start to learn to trust that a little bit more than what you were taught. And so if you can kind of follow that heart desire or follow that intuition, where did that lead you? Like, let's say after your teen years, how did you get into doing what you're doing today? I guess that's the question.
Yeah. In regarding intuition, just a lot of it would be, because I guess I'm a walking zombie and I technically died. I would almost know very easily, very readily when someone was about to go. I could sniff it a lot easier from understanding, that within myself. And so, even high profile deaths that I knew of children, that were involved in terrorist attacks, so I knew, or family members and even friends of mine, I just knew, a lot of times when they were about to go. But for me, that revival period happened after I tried to stifle all this to kind of fit in, and get
right. You're going to blend in the back, right? You're just going to blend with everyone.
Yeah, I was, growing up, and my parents can tell me they didn't know what to do with me, because I was, I had a lot of anger inside of me, and a very difficult time of containing myself, focusing in school and following, all the rules like a dog in a cage, and I just wanted to run out and get out, but I was just very much boxed in and put in the square peg, and it was just too much for me. And even, the culture that I grew up in was so testing to me. It was so rattling to me and so irritating to me that, thankfully I've moved on from that. But, not to knock it, but I grew up, Orthodox Jewish. And so I went to, Jewish schools, and I lived in Israel, and, Judaism is a beautiful faith, but by all means it really tested my buttons. It's for me. I had this experience and this understanding of God in my whole new way. And I was just so frustrating that people could have, something that they believe in that they didn't experience, or that they were born into, or something that they came to within their own minds, but not necessarily their own direct experiences in their own heart. So for me, the separation of spirituality and religion is based on your own direct experiences and validation through your own encounters, where religion is more, telephone game of someone telling you, what God is or what life is, and following, dogmatic policies about that. And there's a lot of good and love and good policies within religion, but, the dogma really irked me, and the rules drove me nuts.
So you felt some separation. You had to feel some separation, but then you find your peace in it, right? I know you have. I can feel that.
Yeah, it took me a while, but in my later teens, is when thankfully things started to open up, and I had a rebirth period. I look at my NDE as a rebirth period, and in my later teens, that was also a rebirth period. And so my later teens, I was mentored from an unexpected, family member of mine who was a real true mystic, and she studied all this stuff. And so I do believe before I came to this earth plane, she agreed to be one of my guides and someone to have a pivotal role in my life. And she was, very pivotal, but she would give me reading assignments and kind of mentor me and coach me in my spiritual development. And so, I think of her and thank her every day as she saved my life, but also, as a college student, I struggle with a lot of anxiety. And so I was really struggling to integrate myself as a college student, and I was in the lowest possible track in a community school. I was an angry kid, and just unsure of where I was going in my life. And so one day I found the practice of yoga and Tai Chi, and that really opened me up. This was, by the way, a South Korean form of yoga and Tai Chi. And so it wasn't Hatha or originated from India. It was more of a Eastern, Far East take on yoga practice. But I owe my whole life to that practice because it saved me. It really allowed me to channel my energies better and to really have a constant quest and search for experiencing that beautiful force within. As George Lucas would talk oftentimes, and by the way, he is a near-death experiencer, but the force, and that's where it came with him. And for me, for taking yoga, I was able to connect deeply to that force or that kundalini or that seed of the soul, so to speak. And for me, that changed my life, and it really opened me up to some profound experiences, and I was able to come back home, as Ram Dass would say.
and be comfortable in your own skin at last, right? By the beach, vacation.
Coming more into my own, and I shook off a lot of those dark, difficult, high school, middle school, awkward years that are so. I mean, that's an awkward period for most kids, but for me, on the inside, it was a real struggle to kind of fake something that I wasn't, to just fit into something that I never agreed with. So, yeah.
Oh, I love that. So you're speaking your truth all across the United States and maybe abroad in the future, and speaking at the IANS conference. So things are. So surprised, you didn't expect that, probably.
Yes and no. Within my NDE, I saw that I would be giving a lot of talks, and that's the reason why I stayed. But later in life, I was someone who was such a grinder and struggled so much in school and academically and socially. I never thought that I would amount to almost anything. And a lot of people told me that directly. Because their standards, I didn't live up to what they programmed to be successful, and I didn't have the same value systems. I didn't immerse myself in their game. But when I needed to, I turned on the jets, and I eventually got my bachelor's and master's and licensure in social work, and now I'm working mental health counselor, and I have my own practice and stuff like that. Thank God, it worked. But for me, I had an angel that came to me once during a yoga seminar, and she told me that without even speaking a word, that I would be speaking to a lot of people and being a well-known healer one day. And I thought she was freaking crazy, because I see myself getting past living in my own home and my own tenuous, at the time, relationship with my family. And it was just such a dark period. But, we all need those subtle reminders to tell us that we are so much more than what we see ourselves as.
Sure.
More than this temporary state, that life has a tendency to unfold, and just the practice of just showing up allows you to really allow yourself to change. Life is always unfolding, and I know you mentioned with near-death experience, even for me years later, every time that I connect to it, it's different. It's not that events have changed, but I'm different. So as I'm going forward, as the old Buddhist proverb would say, you never step in the same river twice. The river is always changing and overflowing. And so the same thing with my NDE. It's always shifting. It's always changing in my outlooks and perceptions towards the integration of it.
And the more you speak and the more that you talk, the more you learn and grow as well.
Yes, and speaking to me, is a wonderful way of just taking different angles and different, avenues and ownership of it. But I love most the Socratic method of question and answer, because people get you to kind of think and be very honest and take kind of like, and I love skeptics because they allow you to take all the woo-woo stuff away and take the fire, kind of like the fire away approach, and burn off all that excess kind of stuff and get to the core truth of your experience and its very nature and its very essence, without all the, fluff attached to it. So I like that too.
Yeah, I'm a little different. I'm very much the woo-woo. That's exactly where I vibrate at. But that's what's so cool. We all get to vibrate and at our own best that we're bringing to the planet at the time,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I don't mean to knock that.
Oh, no, I didn't take it that way.
But, that's almost kind of like a Buddhist type, outlook where you burn away to get to the core essence of things. So I always believe question everything, process everything, and eventually take ownership of that which is in its pure form, and grow that and expand that.
Right. And let go of what doesn't serve you, right? Let go of that doesn't.
Absolutely. Yes.
Well, so do you feel pretty complete with this part? Is there something that you're burning you'd like to say? And then maybe we could do a meditation. Are you feeling meditation, or we could just keep on this where we're going here as well? I'm I'm going to give that to you, my friend.
Yeah, I think maybe we could discuss a little bit about, my work as a Reiki master or, past life regression therapist and how I came to some of those modalities for my clientele. And then if people are interested, I would love to lead, a guided meditation just to give over, a gift to people listening and take them into a heightened state so that they can take a little bit of this with them wherever they go, the confines of their home and during the weekend, as a nice send-off. So, yeah, for me, I'm very drawn to Reiki and past life regression therapy. And a lot of that, it has been built off of my own NDE. Within my own NDE, I connected to the angelic realm and hundreds of thousands of angels around me. And what I connected to was that they were sending energy to my body, which was suffocated, on the ground. And so from that, I saw that they were almost selfless and they didn't seem to have separate, identities, but they were all just sending and there to serve, servants of God and servants of the light and there to give over light and love and energy, and so within my own practice as a Reiki practitioner, I've learned to not only incorporate, Dr. Mikao Usui's work, if anyone's familiar, with the origins of Reiki, which I'm sure started a lot more before Usui in the early 1900s, in Mount Kuriyama in Japan. But, its origins even stem back to, Atlantean civilizations, and there's roots of energy healing since the dawning of the age of man, in our existence. But for me, I do also channel the angelic beings and I include that in my healings, because from my experience, I was able to really channel, the angelic realm. And so I include a lot of that and I was inspired by the angels, to give some of that over to my clients. And so many of my clients, when they come in through distance healing or through coming to my own private office experience, the angelic realm, because I do believe they're all around us and we could call upon that at any given moment in time to not come to us, but through us in any given situation or circumstance. So that's something that I have incorporated. And also past life regression. As a child, I had an awareness of my last incarnation in which I unfortunately committed suicide, after having kind of a, sinking and having my, having that AOF moment, as I would call it, and just, I was cornered and I took my own life. And so for me, having a near-death experience really taught me that I was here to help out that karmic wound, which was to take an understanding that being in a dark place isn't all that you see, that there is more than that dark place, and the universe will work with you and to you to evolve past that and to see that as an opportunity, as a necessary opportunity to evolve as, within each lifetime, messages are repeated until those greater lessons are embraced. So, through those, earlier past life recollections that I've had, I've always taken interest in the subject matter. And so through reading different sources of literature, obviously Dolores Cannon and Brian Weiss come to mind, and child authors such as Carol Bowman, who worked with children, come to mind. But and even Greek philosophers would talk about, reincarnation, and even Jesus, spoke about it, which was banned by the Council of Constantinople, or I believe, or Constantine, I believe. But his teaching of reincarnation were very evident. Even in Jewish mysticism, reincarnation is spoken about. So it's just fascinating to see a lot of the major religions in its core, in essence, include reincarnation as some of their core teachings. But for me, I do include, groups and private sessions just to allow people to get out whatever they're looking to through expansive past life awareness and healing that could come from a session.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes by looking at a past life, then you can see where it's affecting you this lifetime, and then that can be healed, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And I think in this lifetime, struggle happens usually when we take things at face value. And so when something's happened on the outside, we have no filters to process that stimuli, it becomes quite difficult. And so when you have a higher vantage point and when you're tuned in, you're able to allow wisdom to be your guide and navigational system to look at struggle in a whole new different light and lens, and seeing it as an opportunity to evolve, to find middle ground, to look at it from a higher vantage point, and to bless it as an opportunity, not a burden in your life, or not something that bogs you down, but rather something that you have the capacity to make whatever you like to out of that given circumstance.
Mm-hmm. And from a much more neutral point, right? So you can. Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. And I always, in private practice and with my clients, I will always say, never go to a grocery store hungry, never go on a date lonely, and never have a conversation when you're in a state that's not objectified. Mm-hmm. So, really, and that's why I try to incorporate a lot of mindfulness within my clientele, within my agency, within my work, because that's the quickest way to really allow you to get more objective about your life and to make more effective decisions and to be able to handle life with a lot less effort and more skillfulness and what comes your way.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can just feel you just bring so much to the table for someone to be healed, and they don't actually have to come to New York and get healed. Do you do a Skype session, or do you do long distance healing, or?
Yes, I do Skype past life regression sessions, guided meditations on Skype. I do long distance Reiki sessions too. If anyone is interested. So I do all those things.
I love it.
And usually with the Reiki, I am able to pick up on. I wouldn't call myself a psychic because I don't put that out there, but it's more of kind of like a Reiki intuitive and what comes to me through Reiki.
Yeah, definitely intuitive.
So I put that out there, but I haven't put up the shingle yet. As I just personally I'm able to kind of read people, but I professionally maybe someday, but not not at the moment. But during Reiki sessions, I'm able to pick up on loved ones around someone, auras, spiritual totems around someone, or pets on the other side, and or just past experiences or different, parts of someone's electromagnetic field, which might need a little bit more attention, during the Reiki session, whether in person or through, Skype or, long distance.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And do you find that one session's good? You don't need like 10 sessions or 7 sessions, that you can get a lot of work done in one session?
It's all relative and subjective. It's a good question. I find, some people, they benefit from one. Some people come back from many. My goal, and even my colleague Diane Richards, who I was just speaking of, the other day, who, if anyone's interested, she's a phenomenal person to get in touch with. But she and I were talking about this work as not to have a dependence on our clients, but rather to allow them to have those same skills so that they could heal themselves and that they don't need a dependence on someone outside of themselves. And so I have that outlook, from the ground up as a psychotherapist and, in my own clinical practices with clients, but also in different levels in terms of Reiki sessions, meditation sessions, hypnosis sessions. I try to empower my clients, and so that, my goal is that they don't need, to come in quite frequently, that they could recognize that they could heal their own body, their own selves, a lot with focusing on their thoughts, focusing on their own management of their energy, and so I think a lot of what happens is we tend to transfer what we're born into in this world, where we grow up with teachers, we grow up with religion, and we say, oh, that someone has something that I don't, and so I'm going to go to them because they have it, whatever it is that I'm looking for. But, in reality, we could have learned a lot, almost like from kind of like the Wizard of Oz, where she said to Dorothy, you had the power, with you the whole time. You just have to remember it. And it's so true. And I do the Wizard of Oz, and a lot of, movies take a lot of higher dimensional truths with them, on the subconscious basis, and not knowingly, they do it, and there's a lot of heavenly higher truths within, cinemas. But, that's my goal, is to really empower clients to recognize that you don't have to have, an NDE to remember your own heaven, that heaven could be right here in this moment, and that we are our own divine masterpieces. We just have to chip away at that masterpiece that's already there, as Michelangelo would say.
Mm-hmm. So you're a good tool, a safe tool, where they can feel safe to explore those things.
Absolutely. I like to think of my guy that people come in and I kind of jumpstart a car and then eventually they drive it. So they're feeling kind of stuck or their wheels are kind of spinning in place. They come in for a session, they get back on the road. Life happens, they come back in, and, but timing is everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting.
I love it. So if people can contact you at taurushealer@gmail.com, is that the best way?
Yeah, all of my contact information is on my website, at jacobelcooper.com, and also I do have a lot of YouTube videos. They could search me on YouTube if they miss this, or if they want to hear some, another talk that I give or a guided meditation that I do. I do a lot of pro bono talks as well too, for cancer patients, and I give Reiki and meditations, sessions, because, cancer patients are a big passion of mine, or anyone who's dealing with any kind of illness. As, again, that's my goal, is to empower people to not be reliant on someone outside. And, people with cancer, their lives many times are out of their hands or in the hands of someone else. And so I view meditation or Reiki as a way for them to get that power back, in the capacity to tune in to that infinite joy within. That's not off of any, temporary circumstance or condition.
Mm-hmm.
These are populations that I'm, very, inspired to help. And that's one of the after effects of a near-death experience, is when you're in touch with the divine, it's a desire to go over and add your note to the universe. When you think of universe, uni means one and birth means song. And so I think we all want to check in with what do we want to broadcast to our world. Do we want the world to be a place of healing, a place of giving back, a place of oneness, or do we want to continue some of our tendencies and selling ourselves short to not give over our greater gifts to the world? But, as Wayne Dyer would say, we never want to die with the music still in us. We want to play our song. We want to allow ourselves to rehearse what we want to give over to this world and what we want our declaration to the universe to be.
Mm-hmm. It's who you are. It's what you came here to do. So it's kind of like letting your light shine, right? Letting that part of you that gets to that connection with Source, that connection with Great Spirit, whatever your name for that happens to be.
Yes, and that is who we are. You don't have to have a Hay House book to be saying that. We're all healers in our own way. We're all capable of helping out some in our own capacity. You don't have to have a big, book deal to make a difference in this world. Although you can by doing that too, but it doesn't mean that you're any better nor worse. Everyone has their own unique song, their unique purpose, and it's no different or worse. And so you just never know what that smile could do, or opening up that door for someone, or shining your light in your own way. You just never know the lives you could touch or impact by that. So, it's being your highest self, being your shining self that you can, and tuning into all that might get in the way through deep inner workings and removal of all those barriers through spiritual honest practices and modalities, whatever works to you to get up to the mountain, to that light, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. And to find your way of service, because really, isn't that what it's about? Where you can find your peace, where you can find your joy, where you can find that love is through service.
Yes, and that's what God is to me in its essence, in all the angelic beings. It's about service, it's about healing, it's about giving, and it's learning a different paradigm that we've been exposed to, where most of us, we do good on our test, we feel good, someone rewards us. There's, it gets very, kind of Pavlovian, if you will, where there's, conditional rewards for our current outcomes. And so, being true to ourselves when we're connected to, we learn deeper ways to accept people for who they are, accept situations for what it is, without as much, ridicule or judgment, on those, so, but easier said than done, right? Especially in today's world.
Well, and that's why you can use the tool like you and someone, a healer like you, and that it will help you to express that freedom of who you are, to have the courage to take that step that maybe you're not comfortable in.
Yeah. And in so many of my workshops and groups, people say, I meditate every day, but I still slip. I still fall back. I work on the stuff, but I still cursed out my coworker, or I don't know, I went off on my car mechanic, or who knows. These are all things that make us human. But people who practice this deep inner work are a lot more mindful, or a lot more aware, so that they're able to pivot easier. They're able to reset. They're able to recalibrate. So it's not to be perfect, but rather to take those setbacks as opportunities to dig even deeper, to learn even more, to evolve even more, and to most importantly forgive yourself. That's a part of being human, but to learn, how to love yourself for the good and bad, and to evolve from all those circumstances.
Yeah. And it's so true. After you have an NDE, it doesn't mean that you just have this special life, that you're not untouched by anything. If anything, it's the opposite. It's where you go in and really go through this deep eye of the needle sort of an experience.
Well,
almost.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Oh no. And what I'm learning is a lot of people put NDEers on a pedestal where, even for me, once in a while you slip up, something, you do something, but we're all human first and foremost. We're not super beings by being NDEers.
Right.
So, that's something that I highlight where, yes, you're an NDEer, but also you're a human being first, capable of making a mistake, but also capable of rectifying those mistakes and learning from that. And so what I try to find is an opportunity to allow not only yourself, but other parties to develop, a way, to learn from those and evolve from those, and not just try to embarrass someone or just say, hey, they made a mistake, let's ride them off and they're done good. That's conditional. That's what we've been, programmed to, in this practice, it's about learning what we can do to help out someone who's erred, and what happened and how we could rectify this, as life is a school and it doesn't stop because you failed one test. If that were the case, no one would have passed school. We're here to continue to answer back to the call and to learn from those opportunities. And hopefully we could develop a society and community which allows forgiveness and allows opportunities for people to expand, and not deflate and not need to come back because they and the world around them never, gave them that permission to enter a new day and to evolve and forgive. And so that's what I provide.
And like into the new human, where we don't even know our own capabilities. We're just learning how amazing we are, in incredible beings.
Sure. Yes. And, the biggest thing is to learn how to accept and love who we are, our good, our bad, in our past, and to understand that is not who we are, that we are divine consciousness, and we are eternal beings, and we are going through in and out of lifetimes, much like an ocean wave goes out and goes in, coming back, coming out, each with a purpose, each with a song, each with, a capacity to heal, to grow, to teach, and for difficult ways or for easy ways to others.
Yeah.
There's the purpose of everything.
Yeah, and we're not alone. That's the big one. I always get that we're never alone. We always have our guides or our guardians with us the whole way.
Yeah, and so, when people say they're a loner, I would say you're kind of delusional in a way, because when you think about it, I would diagnose you as being psychotic or just very limited.
Wow.
But really, being alone is such an illusion, because when we think about it, we are surrounded by endless loved ones on either side, and those who are rooting for us, there for us, guiding us, and it's almost just that gentle nudge on the shoulder that it's very soft, but we know it's there. And, And so many times people will come in, and myself included, when your back's against the wall and you feel that angelic presence with you, steering you in the right way, or you feel that that inclination to turn in a certain direction and on the highway, and you're held to safer ground. So, they're always there. We just have to listen. We just have to tune in.
And trust that it's there.
Yeah. And so through a lot of deep training, we could tend to differentiate that doubt, that voice, in the true silent, sacred sound of spirit that's always with us.
Mm-hmm. That's true. It's a wonderful way to live and evolve and grow and change and get brighter and brighter. So everyone has to wear sunglasses. No, just kidding.
just in Los Angeles, not in New York. I get people coming into my office on rainy days with sunglasses, and I go, listen, you got to go to LA, not over here, dude. That's not how we roll, Not, we're not red carpet here, we're New York.
Well, it's just been a joy to have you reveal yourself to us and become a little bit vulnerable with our listeners, and it takes courage to do that, and so I applaud that in you.
Oh, well, thank you. I used to run a lot of support groups for NDEers, mm-hmm. and so one of the tenets that I established was, the more that you talk about your experience, and we spoke about this earlier, mm-hmm. the more ownership that you have, and the more of a language that you have, and the more mm-hmm. of a life that it takes for you. And so for me, much like Raymond, if my experience was just about me, I probably would just keep it private and go on with my life. But,
sure.
The universe did not allow that to happen. Through different occurrences, I was almost forced to take a new trajectory in my life through different shake-up periods or rattle periods of my own consciousness that happened later in life. But for me, this lifetime is never about myself.
Mm-hmm.
It's about your experiences and drawing upon the canvas what you want to portray to the world, and for the world to really, see something beautiful and to implement in their everyday lives, and to have a ripple effect, over all those that you interact with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In all your good, bad, and ugly, right?
That's it. There's a lot you can learn from almost anyone, in any way. So sure.
Yeah. Well, we have about 15 minutes left. If you want to do a quick meditation, or we could, is that enough time? Maybe it's past time for that. We should move on. What's your feeling on that?
Let's go with it. Let's rock and roll.
I love it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So I hand it over to you, my friend.
Okay. So, for all listeners out there, I would like for you to just tune in. And so many of us on this Friday night, the 26th of July, have had busy weeks where we worked very hard. Some of us have had more easy weeks than not, but this is a time just to let go of your week and just come into a new, and just allow yourselves to let the week go, let time go, let all of your stories, all of your stuff, everything that you're holding on to just be released. And during this time, I'd like for you to inhale in spirit through your nose in about 3 to 5 counts, very slowly, and exhale very slowly, releasing, almost imagining a balloon that you're inhaling. You're inflating the balloon for 3 to 5 counts, and exhale, deflating the balloon. Let go. Allowing yourself to feel, experience, and sense your body. How many times do we get to sense and feel our bodies? So many times we just connect to our thoughts, but we don't feel our bodies. We're not grounded and connected to our sacred temple. So during this time, I like for you all just tune into your bodies, just noticing the miracle that you are, miracle that the body is. Here we are living on a big round ball circulating around a brilliant star and sun in whatever part of the world you're in, and a body comprised of millions of cells, blood flow, brain waves, bones, nerves. Just take an inventory, in a sense, for the greater miracle that you are and are surrounded by, all made possible by the light of God and the infinite wisdom of Spirit. All is within the intelligent force of Spirit. And just allowing yourself to let go of any separation, any reoccurring thought that you might have been holding on to, letting go and getting into your body. So during this time, I'd like for you to take another deep breath in, hold it in your chest, and exhale slowly through your mouth. Breathe out, and having your head facing a little bit towards the ground, sitting in a comfortable, relaxed, but also upright position, shoulders set back, chest confident, ready to receive the flow of chi, of life's force coming into you, through you, letting go whatever you've been holding on to, whatever's stagnant, whatever you're still holding on to, whatever is getting in the way of your own inner flow and inner rhythm, letting go. Give yourself permission to let go, that it's okay. Exhale, let go. Tuning in to your body, slowing down your brainwave frequencies, and getting a sense of the love that you have towards yourself. You might feel a warm, pulsating feeling within your heart. You might feel energy within your palms, different acupressure, meridian points, and centers in your body. Just allowing the breath to work, its intelligent force to move the chi energy, universal life force, whatever you decide to view it as, flowing through, all throughout your physical body, auric and electromagnetic field, that during this time, the mind, body, spirit, to the higher connection, to the earth, sky, ground beneath you, presence of both are now in your awareness, as above, so below, during this time. Take a moment just to connect to your higher energies, higher heavenly planes, dimensions, feeling your feet on the ground, connecting to the earth, your rootedness to the earth, your appreciation for Mother Earth, trees, stars, the ocean. We're all connected. Same elements that are in a star are in you and every part of the planet. Very core, it is all comprised of just the same elements. Core. Being reduced, it's all the same. Letting go of all that separates you from being one, being expanded, being more conscious of your interconnectivity to all that ever is and all that ever was. Releasing any limiting belief system that gets in the way of this heightened sense of expansive awareness. I'd like for you to imagine during this moment and during this time, beautiful color that's now sitting at the top of your head. This might be emerald green. It might be a violet, a white light, gold, silver. It might not be any color. It might just be a feeling. Just allow this sensation to pour its way down to the top of your head, clearing away all the stress, all the worries that you have, and trusting this intelligent force, this feeling to come vibrating heavily down into your body, field going down into your forehead, to your throat center, down into your shoulders. So much of the weight on your shoulders, down into your chest, rib cage, your legs, knees, your ankles, feet. Throughout this time, you are feeling incredibly relaxed and incredibly connected. I'd like for you to continue this feeling, soft inhalation, breathing in this beautiful color, sensing your energy centers that might be spinning around, whether that it's your third eye rotating, feeling just your palms or your heart center. You might sense certain colors. Just allow yourself to connect to these, letting go of your judgment, your editing, just accepting what you feel. During this moment, I'd like for you to continue to take a walk slowly on the beach, visualizing yourself sitting down slowly, right in front, water, feeling the earth sky above your head, beautiful sun right on your skin, feeling a deep sense of inner peace, connecting to the ocean. You are the ocean. You are the water. Each wave is a representation of the manifestation and expression of the divine. So too are you in your every thought and every action. Go forward, you express yourself, you come back to your essence. Inhale, retreat, allow the ocean wave to come in. And exhale, express, release. Noticing parallels of the ocean waves, your essence. Going within, going without. Inhale and exhale, all coming back to your true essence. Throughout this time, you might notice a friend, loved one, someone accompanying you in the distance. Wherever you see, wherever you are, wherever you are, understanding that you are connected so much more than you can ever imagine, that you are loved infinitely amount more that you could possibly conjure or process or become aware of within this limited framework, our bodies and our minds in this life. That indeed you are infinite love. You are a part of that love. Just as you're connected and a part of all the earthly compository elements, you are a spiritual being. At your core, at your very essence, love is all that you are. Letting go during this time anything that is not of that love, anything that doesn't allow you to experience your true nature, pure love, pure light, pure wisdom, pure connection. So during this time, letting go all that is not of this pure higher awareness and consciousness. Just getting in flow, deeper, profound connections that you have towards your essence. During this time, if there's any messages that you receive from the heavens, from loved ones on the other side, there might be no one accompanying you. You might just be by yourself. You are enough. All is well. Just tuning into any messages that you might need to hear on this Friday night, this moment, during this space, during this time, allowing the message to go into the mind, to the heart, thanking Spirit for its capacity to hear you and steer you always exactly where you need to be, trusting the intelligent force of Spirit. During this time, I'd like for you to come back down to the top of your head, forehead, your shoulders, your chest, your rib cage, your stomach, core, legs, knees, your feet, all feeling washed by this beautiful, brilliant light of spirit, this reconnection to your deeper essence. So at any time when you're feeling any bit of doubt or separation from spirit, always knowing that you can keep this feeling, keep this sensation, wherever you go, wherever you're faced. I am so blessed, so thankful for you to be listening, to be allowing yourselves to give time to yourselves, to your life, that you can make this world a brighter, happier, joyful, spiritual, more uniformal, who you are, why you came back to this lifetime in and lifetime out, make a difference. Let us say during this time, gratitude and thanks in advance, thanking those in the satellites in the heavens, those with us on this earth plane. Let us say Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Slowly open up your eyes.
Wow. Thank you, Jake Cooper.
I am merely a wallflower. I thank Spirit, but thank you for all listening and opening up your space and opening up this platform, to allow Spirit to be, just put out in anyone's home and
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you next week on the Cosmic Oracle Show. Thank you, Jake Cooper, and everyone for tuning in. Next Monday.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message. Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at higher risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Thanks for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we are listener-sponsored and commercial-free. But there still are bills to pay. In order to raise some needed funds to cover the cost, our station is offering a silver special. In the continental United States for a $60 donation, or in Alaska, Hawaii, or Canada for a $70 donation, we will send you an uncirculated 2018 1-ounce pure silver Eagle. The $70 donation, the extra 10 is to cover shipping, by the way, outside of the continental United States. When making the donation, you must put Silver Eagle promo in the notes on the donation. And thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at revolution.radio and freedomslips.com. Without you, there is no us. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Take a look around, kid. What do you see? Homes being foreclosed. People working 2-3 jobs just to put food on the table and still drowning in debt. Don't get me wrong. This country was founded on great ideals and principles. They've all been ruined by the banks. Open your eyes to the banks that are robbing you. You know who my favorite president was? Who? Thomas Jefferson. because he saw all of this coming and tried to stop it. He fought the banks. JFK too, and they killed him for it. The banking institution is more dangerous than an army, he said. He also said that every generation needs a revolution, Jimmy. The American dream is just that. Just a dream. War is a continuation of politics, only by other means. Politics is the continuation of economics by other means. This is our bank. This is our...